Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Tate for a very, very special review. If you can't see above and below us, these lovely logos. This is our spoiler-free review for Cobra Kai Season 5. As always, we've been very fortunate by the folk at Netflix to be able to be credited for the first, well, not the first 9 episodes, the whole season, what ended up being, to give us spoiler-free review for you all at home. Now, I know that Cobra Kai has a lot of fans, and I know that a lot of people have checked out our channel before. So, as we will just do some ground rules for everybody watching at home, this is pre-recorded. We are not live. This is dropping at 8 in the morning on Tuesday, the 6th of September. There will be no spoilers. There will be no character revelations. Me and Tate have a schedule. The only details we're going to go into, and it isn't plot detail, is maybe the story arc set up by the ending of season 4, which we'll get into. But before we really crack onto it, Tate, how are we doing tonight?
Yeah, doing very, very well. Glad to finally be on talking about Cobra Kai, because I don't think I've been on any of the other reviews, which is interesting. I think it's always come out.
You used to watch it before me as well, didn't you? It's normally out in December with you in Austria.
Yeah.
And they pulled. Was this meant to be December, and they pulled it back to September, didn't they? It was very
I have no idea who releases something like that early, that kind of quick. No one does that. But they seem to manage to kind of pull it off, and I'm glad that I'm able to finally kind of have my kind of 2 cents on this show.
No, definitely. And what we'll do, we'll pick up shortly on the ending of season 4. But what we want to do, we want to hear from everybody at home. So please do comment your thoughts on Cobra Kai. If you're new to the channel, if you're a fan of this series, want to hear your thoughts on the show, what you're looking forward to from season 5. Maybe there's plans for future seasons. Maybe there's plans for future films. Just let us know your thoughts, of course, on the Karate Kid 2, because this all stems from that incredible, I say it is an original film. So then get a trilogy, then a quadrilogy, then the Jaden Smith one. And then obviously Cobra Kai is to save the day, bring it back together. So let us know your thoughts, and please do hit that subscribe button. There is going to be a season 5 spoiler discussion video. We don't have a date for this yet, but we will be back when the season's out. We'll give you a couple of days to watch all 10 episodes. It's not actually that long, which we'll probably get into as well. And as well as that, Tate, where can the people find us to know what is happening on the channel?
People can find us on both Twitter and Instagram. We are most active there, so please go and follow us on those 2 channels. That is at cinema_savvy. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Letterboxd. That is Cinema Savvy. Just type it in, you'll find us. And if you want to go into the link in description below, pick up a t-shirt, pick up a cap, pick up a pillow, or whatever you want from Redbubble. Help support the channel as much as possible by getting our merch from there.
Don't say everybody, please do check them out. It does help support us, and of course, our social media. When it's videos like this, these early reviews, often we're not allowed to say we're doing stuff in advance. Obviously, for this one, we are. But of course, this just pops up on the channel. The time of this going up is at 8:01 a.m. Tuesday morning. But if we're going to crack into it, as I said, final reminder, spoiler free. Also, please don't ask us spoilerific questions. We've had this before. Again, we'd love to answer comments. We love to answer questions. We love to reply to people, but we can't directly give away any spoilers. That breaks the term of NDAs and embargoes, and it also ruins it for people at home. People that might not know what's happening, they might not want to know. They might check this video out. Even if you think you've read something, please don't comment that. And obviously, if it does cross the line, we will have them removed, which we don't want to do.
Yes.
We want to encourage the conversation. But Tate, jumping over to you first. Obviously, season 4 dropped, I think, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day this year. It's insane. And I'm just going to kind of jump to you. Like, what is your thoughts? I mean, we've not had you on, actually. Your thoughts on Cobra Kai as a whole, but also the ending of season 4 and what they were able to set up.
Well, from a self-funded legacy kind of show on YouTube to become a massive Netflix hit is fantastic in any sense of the word. For it to happen to a kind of, I guess, action movie franchise, I guess you can call it action movie franchise, a martial arts franchise back from the 80s kind of being brought into the modern day and updated and kind of renewed and given to the new generation, getting people involved is even better. And it seems with this series, they love to build on kind of what was before by moving forwards, by referencing the past, by going into those different aspects. And it's so refreshing to see that as a franchise that's been kind of renewed, to have those kind of callbacks to the past and kind of continue on the characters in later life. That's what drew me into Cobra Kai in the first place. I was never a massive fan of the Karate Kid franchise, personally. I liked the first film. The other 2 I watched, I think I've seen them both once, and I haven't seen Karate Kid 4, and I never watched the Jaden Smith one, thankfully. But with this franchise. I've been watching it since it was a YouTube original, so I got on board pretty much straight away. Watched, I think they had the first 2 episodes free, got really into it, and then didn't want to pay for the YouTube original, so waited until it came out onto Netflix, and then really got on board when Netflix started kind of producing and funding it. So I've been with this pretty much from the start, and I've really enjoyed how the characters have developed throughout the entire time. You get more attached to them, the new characters, the old characters coming back. It's just so well done. But I do find it very interesting to have basically 2 series of one show dropped in 1 year. That's fascinating. I think the only other shows that have done it previously are ones that have done part A and part Bs of their series, not entirely separate series thrown out. I think the one that comes to mind for that was BoJack Horseman's final series. They did like 10 episodes, and then the final 6 episodes dropped like 6 months later, which was like, oh wow, they're doing pretty much a whole other series almost dropping afterwards, which was really interesting. So yeah, no, I found it really fascinating how they've managed to do that.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think for these guys and how they shoot them, it's such a young cast as well. And I know a lot of them have gone on to other stuff. I know that Mughal is it going to be in a DC film that hasn't been cancelled, Blue Beetle next year. Obviously, Peyton's I think a very successful model as well, and there's so much of happening. When they pulled this back to like September, I was like, Christ, that is quick. And they must have an incredible shooting schedule. And without sort of guessing, I'd imagine it being a YouTube original probably helps, because that probably had a very rigid production that it was a question mark. Are we going to get another season? Are we not? And obviously, you hear a lot about directors that work on independent projects that when they get big budgets or they get big companies backing them, it makes it easy for them to do more. And I wonder if this is like the power of Netflix comes in and these guys can just churn out a season inside a year. Like they might have everything planned out. I feel like they've got a long-term plan, and it's just quite insane that we've got a second one in September as well.
Yeah.
To get it in September is this. I mean, let's just say it, like Rings of Power, House of the Dragon, Cassian,
years in
Cobra
development.
Kai. That's 4
yeah.
major shows in the same like 2-week gap. Would we say 2-week gap? All of those.
Well, I was going to say, this year hasn't been ridiculously big on cinema. Like, cinema has been kind of there. It was there with kind of Top Gun at the start of the year, but it's really dropped off towards the end of the year. It will pick up again coming up to London Film Festival and everything like that. But even then, like, we've gone, okay, the summer blockbusters were so early, we're just straight back into award season. Whereas TV's taken on this other life this year. I think since the pandemic, TV became so huge. I mean, at the moment, I'm watching through Succession, which is something which I should have been on way before this. I'm trying to watch through Rings of Power, trying to watch through House of the Dragon, had to watch through Cobra Kai. There's so much going on at the moment, and so many things that you can watch and go see. With Cassian also coming out, or Ander coming out, sorry. It's all, it's all happening in the TV market at the moment. And then you've got all the Marvel shows that are kind of going in along with that. It's just like an endless stream of entertainment. It's fantastic to be able to get all of this kind of content, especially legacy content of stuff which kind of new generations and old generations can enjoy. And I'd say Cobra Kai, going into its 5th season, continues that on, doing exactly the same as what it's done in the previous seasons, giving you kind of the same old characters, the same new characters, character callbacks, the new characters getting new stuff to work with. It all kind of melts into what you would now consider to be a kind of good standard for Cobra Kai as far as the series is concerned. It's not my favorite season so far, but it's still a good season nevertheless.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like again, a show like this to get 5 seasons that is remarkable. And in quick span, they're not like some shows have massive gaps, don't they? But I think between 2 and 3 had a gap. Again, the Netflix money, the moving studio. It's really interesting heading into this. And just my initial thoughts on this season, following yours. I'm in the same vein as you. I know you'll probably speak about the final episode. But what I will say about this show, it's probably one of the most bingeable shows there is. Now, there's the whole argument, weekly releases versus binging. Cobra Kai to me wouldn't function as a weekly drop. I actually know a few people that do enjoy taking their time with it. But for me, the story is very not short. It's 10 episodes. They're sort of 35 minutes in length, 5-6 hours. You could do it in a sitting. I did seasons 1, 2. I think I did the first 3 seasons, no joke, in 24 hours. That was an insane. And you know what? You mentioned Succession. Around Christmas, that's one of the times I actually really binge TV, because I don't watch many films. It's more like chill out at home for a week. And I remember last year I did 3 seasons of Succession in the space of 1 week. and I think Cobra Kai was the year or two before. The year was the year before, sorry. And I literally did season 1 in the middle of the night, season 2 when I woke up, season 3 that night, and that was the first ever press accreditation we've had on this channel. So Cobra Kai's got like a special place in this channel's heart. And what I kind of want to jump into, if we look at some of season 5, so as I said, guys, this is spoiler free. We're going to really get into it now. So if you don't want to know anything, you don't want to know anyone's thoughts on individual story arcs, we're going to go through them. There's 3 we're going to look at. We've got, we'd say, section 1, which is following on from the ending of season 4. We've got Cobra Kai winning. We've chosen teaming up with Daniel, with Miyagi-Do. Tease that, it's like the What I've Done Linkin Park ending, isn't it? That's become a meme recently.
Yeah.
We've got part 2. We've got Kreese left in jail. There's not much to say. That's not spoiler free, so we'll be very short on that. And part 3, which is obviously Miguel's subplot, him going off to Mexico. But if we look into part 1, which is, I guess, is the core story point. Cobra Kai has been victorious. They've released the trailer, which is actually the opening scene of season 5, which is the Cobra Kai advert, which is phenomenal. Straight away, I would say this is the first series I've noticed the budget go up, and there are new sets. And I've just got to say, production design, the Cobra Kai building, the whole vibe of Terry Silver's coming of this money. He's almost like Netflix in his own right. The production has really amped up now. But just for the Cobra Kai storyline, I absolutely love it that we're sort of 5 seasons in. It's like a soap opera. Like wrestling was always like the soap opera for men.
Yeah.
I kind of see like Cobra Kai as like, not for men, but Cobra Kai is that similar. Like it's a soap opera. It shouldn't be, but it is. And certainly the Cobra Kai Miyagi dose of like, oh no, those dastardly Cobra Kai people, what are they going to get up to this year? I really like the story arc with them this year. Obviously, we can't go into specifics of it, but Terry Silver leading Cobra Kai, to me, is one of the best things this series could have done. I'm a big fan of Karate Kid 3. Terry Silver's one of my favorite villains from that. But I love the fact that Thomas Ian Griffith has like come out of retirement. He's not done anything for decades, or unless it's short roles. And he's come back as like a lead, and he's bloody fantastic in this. And I feel that he embraces the character, but the showrunners and writers, they understand the character. They understand he may be deemed cartoonish or two-dimensional, but he is a villain. He is an over-the-top villain, and he's so bloody good at playing it. It is, every time he's on screen, it's just amazing, and you can't not have enough of him. He's used a lot in this, but I'd just happily have a show just following around for a week or 2.
He's absolutely fantastic just in general in this series, and it's a natural progression that you get from a villain. Like in the first few series, the villains were kind of, it was difficult to say whether Danny LaRusso was the villain or whether Johnny Lawrence was the villain, because they kind of both played onto those characters. Cobra Kai is the series, and you're following really kind of Johnny and his journey. Therefore, Danny is the villain, but Johnny does some questionable stuff. Therefore, it could have gone either way in the first series going through. Then you bring in Kreese, who's this cold, calculating, manipulative, fantastic presence on screen as a villain. And then we just move up from that and just go to kind of the cartoonish, mustache kind of twirling levels of villainy that is Terry Silver. Fantastically played by Thomas Ian Griffith once again. And I love the fact that he's just given so much screen to chew up in this series. It's every single scene with him, and you'll see it when you watch the show. He is just so maniacal and so kind of dastardly. It's fantastic to watch him interact with every single character that he comes up against, because he plays it differently each time, and every time you're just watching him on screen, and he's so energetic in his role. You can almost laugh at how it's played. It's so well done, and it just kind of heightens, shall we say, the tension between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do as part of the plot line, especially from the previous series. It just ratchets up the tension even more.
Yeah, and I want to speak about characters. We've got Chosen, who the ending of the last series, he returns to help Daniel. Obviously, we're not going to talk too much about his story arc per se, but I think we can say that we get a lot more of him, which is great, because I would say he was one of the standouts when they came back to him in season 4, that we got to spend time with him. We got to get that development, and for him to become a series regular, I think is pretty unique in its own right. And this kind of is what is probably amazing for the legacy of Karate Kid, the films. 2 and 3 were sort of deemed not on a par of the first one, but 2 and 3 were like, oh yeah, they did more of them and they were crap. That was the sort of public persona of 2 and 3 until Cobra Kai. And by developing people like Chosen, like Terry Silver, even like Kreese, who doesn't get much to do in those, Cobra Kai has like cemented a new legacy for the entire Karate Kid franchise. Obviously, nothing on the next Karate Kid. That's never been mentioned or associated. Of course, the Jaden Smith one isn't at all. There's that weird irony that Will Smith is a producer on this.
Yeah,
it's just always fascinating when the name pops up on the credits. And what I want to kind of pose to you with that is obviously, we have a lot of Daniel and Johnny, but to me, this show started out of those two as the protagonist antagonist in reverse. Now they're almost like supporting characters, and I want to kind of pose you, how do you feel about them both in season 4? Like, they don't have as much to do, but the focal interest is with the other characters.
Yeah, I mean, it starts off with kind of those two being the main characters of the show, and then you've got characters like Miguel, who are kind of the secondary main characters, kind of real focus on them and stuff like that. And the younger cast gets kind of more of a focus in series 2 and series 3, I feel.
Yeah.
As it's gone through the series, the focus has shifted quite heavily towards kind of whoever the villainous character is, pretty much against the entire world. And of course, you've got some supporting characters around them that are going to help out and stuff like that. But for this series, that villainous character, and I guess the main character of this series, I would say, was kind of Terry Silver. A lot of the focus is on him in this series, and you get kind of not smaller plot lines, but different plot lines for the other characters and different things that they're dealing with. But it always comes back to that one point, always comes back to that one villain. It's really interesting dynamic on how it's kind of developed through the show, and bringing back people like Chosen and just even Terry Silver himself from series 4. It's developing the past, yes, and it's making those kind of rewatchability value for the other films way higher, because you know that they're going to become characters that you're going to look at later on. But yeah, it's really interesting how the focus from the show has changed over the years. And it kind of changes once again into this show, into series 5. And it'll be really interesting to see what people think about that when they're watching it.
Yeah, and sort of following that, we'll bring up a character Kreese, as we mentioned. Season 4 ends with him being arrested. An incredible setup again by Terry Silver to take control of Cobra Kai, knowing that his weakness is Kreese. We'll say this very carefully, our thoughts on the Kreese subplot, but
yeah,
he's I don't even want to say that. Let's say that he has a story arc per se. Obviously, you have to see it, and I don't even want to say how often he's in it, if I'm being honest. I would say he's in it more than you might think, but he also might be in it less than you think. And that doesn't really give you an answer. But what I will say, from the time we spend with him, it delves deeper into some of the backstory we learned in earlier seasons, which in turn makes from, again, like his character. Like we have a fleshed out history for Kreese. Like, just let's put that into perspective from 5 years ago. We have a whole backstory for the instructor, from the first film, as lightly as that. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful term. But I like what we get from him in this series. But as we've kind of alluded to, the key major story point is Terry Silver and Cobra Kai, not Kreese, in this season. And I think because he's played such a superb villain for sort of 2 seasons in a row, I think it benefits moving the limelight to somebody else for a year.
Yeah, I agree. Kreese's role in this series it's very interesting. It's not a leading role. It's not a main role. It's a supporting role, which he hasn't been for, I guess, since the kind of guest appearance in the first series, at the end of the first series. So it's really interesting kind of how it's taken on board this series. With what little we're given for him, we're given an awful lot. It's a heavy role for such a small kind of amount that we actually kind of get to experience it. It's very interesting. It is very interesting. But like you said, the focus is not on his character role this season. It is all on kind of Cobra Kai's interactions with Miyagi-Do and with Terry Silver kind of leading that, and kind of just, being his, I'll use the word again, dastardly self.
Yeah, no, I'm amazing that. And we'll also move on to one of the big ones. We've got Miguel. Of course, the backstory, he leaves the tournament. He goes off to Mexico in search for his father. This is an interesting one because Cobra Kai is never. I mean, of course, we went to Japan in a previous season. They have. I enjoy the little exterior trips they might do that we get to spend time with characters elsewhere. Because again, the Karate Kid films kind of did that in its own right. And I will say the Miguel stuff doesn't click for me as well as I thought it could. But if I'm being honest, the idea of him going to Mexico wasn't something I was ever particularly interested in from season 4.
Yeah.
It's something that his story arc throughout season 5 is bigger than Mexico. I think I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah.
And I think Mexico does a very good job in terms of being a cliffhanger from the last season in pushing him and a few of the characters' stories forward. Obviously, we've of course, it's going to end with oh dear me. Sorry, I almost did spoil. I was trying to make sure I didn't, but
Yeah.
obviously, we've got Johnny playing father to him. We've also got Robbie as well. I will say Robbie has got a lot more to do in this series than just be a romance interest, which is great. He hasn't got terrible hair in this series too, because that is always a very much discussed thing online. But the Miguel stuff, I think, is quite easy to run with, but there's a bigger picture in play which we can't really get into. You have to find that all out for yourselves. But Tate, how do you feel? Just him off to Mexico. It's weird. I mean, it begins.
Yeah.
I'll say this: like, this is spoiler free, but when he first goes there, there is a terrible, terrible scene that feels very, very, very
out of place.
YouTube sketch show type scene. Like, it's so odd. When you see it, you'll understand. But I was worried, like, oh my dear, are we going to get this awful, awful, awful subplot? And it wasn't, to be fair. It moved on from that very quickly.
Yeah, accusing one in particular scene, it worked for the character role who's so family-based at this point. And this is kind of him going to Mexico is family kind of motivated. It's kind of trying to find his origins, getting his own origin story kind of sorted out. And like you said as well, his overarching kind of story for this entire season is bigger than Mexico. There is a lot that happens in this series for Miguel to kind of digest, and Mexico is a part of that, but it's not kind of the biggest thing there. They do a lot with all of the kind of reoccurring characters from the kids, I guess we can call them, even though they're probably not kids anymore, from the 2 karate dojos. Everyone gets something different to do, which they wouldn't normally do. But it's kind of your standard. It's a karate show. Like, there will be fights in there. Don't worry about it and stuff like that. There's still the rivalry that's going on. It's kind of as expected from everyone else within the series. Certain characters do have their own little kind of side quests that they go on and everything like that. But when we get back down to it, it's your typical Cobra Kai series, which they've kind of made into not boring, but a repetitive cycle that works. It's something that you can just go back to and go, yeah, it's fine. Don't change it. It's good. It works in that way. Like, we expect to see fights. We expect to see some characters kind of popping in and making guest stars, some characters coming back. We expect to see kind of certain rivalries reignite and certain flare-ups between different characters. And that's all you get in this series. You get all of that kind of out there in the open.
Who would be your standout actor for the show? This season, sorry. Like, is there anyone that just steals the series for you? I've got one person in mind.
It might be the same person.
Dallas Dupree Young, who of course is playing Kenny Payne. I mean, Kenny Payne? That's like a Mortal Kombat name. The kid that was bullied turned bully himself. I absolutely love Kenny in this series. I think he's like the reverse Daniel LaRusso. If you look at his origins in the original Karate Kid film, I think he's wonderful. Obviously, I love Thomas Griffin, sorry, but Kenny Payne, for a character that came in season 4, is like asserted in this series. Like, he genuinely feels like he's one of the few actors that could actually beat the shit into you if you're watching at home.
Yeah,
I thought he was wonderful every time he's on screen, and he really, again, now this sort of post-tournament victory Cobra Kai, new Cobra Kai, he's like at the sort of forefront of it, and I feel like this story-wise they made the right choice in like pushing him to that level.
I mean, he's definitely got a larger role in the series. I wouldn't have personally put him as my kind of standout from the series. I would have put that firmly in Peyton List's hands, playing Tori Nichols. Her character role in this series is very complex. Like there is a lot of kind of demons running around there, shall we say, and she has to face them, and she has to kind of face the music for what happened at the end of the last series, and that's something that kind of slowly unravels throughout the entire series this time round. I'd say that she was definitely a standout in this series. She's been great ever since she's joined, but this series I feel like was one which really kind of like it really kicked up with her storyline and stuff like that. So yeah, I personally put her there in that role. Although to be honest, out of everyone in general, who would I say was a standout? It's obviously Terry Silver. It's obviously Thomas Ian Griffith.
So good.
Like,
it's just great to see him back. Like he's championed being in the series, hasn't he? Like he's a real like advocate for it. And I don't know if he's going to be. I know a lot of the cast do the convention circuit, and Cobra Kai is that kind of show that I probably really should start doing conventions for. But the cast seem like they get on really well outside, and I feel like you can see that in the series. Like this is a group. This isn't like shattered storylines where there are egos in play. It feels like a group of people having the time they love filming a series, and it shows on screen. And kind of moving into some of my final thoughts of that. Again, we've kept this spoiler free. We're not going to go too long in this because there will be a spoiler discussion. I think season 5 is if you're a fan of Cobra Kai, I don't need to sell it to you. You'll be watching it on the 9th anyway. But I've just got to say that this is probably the series with the most story in play. This is the series with the most, again, like not just story, but like there's multiple story arcs. The fact you mentioned Peyton there as well, who I hadn't even brought up. As you said, she's got a lot to do. It's very different. This series is maybe the most adult in terms of thematics, but it never loses what it is to be Cobra Kai. It doesn't ever drop from the karate, from the 80s extravaganza when you get those classic songs come up or those moments. And you mentioned the flashbacks. They're so wholesome when there's something about this show that every time they do a flashback to the original Karate Kid films, they've just done it in such a tasteful manner that it's never too long. It's never just dropped for the sake of it. There's always a place within the story of the episode or the conversation.
You get like those couple of clips kind of roll through, and then like the character's eyes, and then more clips, and it's just so well done.
Yeah, and they do it again in this, like, and also there's a character in this series. This isn't a spoiler. In the original films, I won't say which one or which character says it.
Yeah.
Somebody is name dropped that never appeared in them. It's not even hinted at being a big deal. And in this, it is used as a massive backstory for a character. And I was just there. That's like George Lucas levels of prequels there. That's like, oh, yes, the Clone Wars. Like, 20 years later, let's just do a whole like 8-season series and 3 films. And it was like we had this in Cobra Kai in this series. And yeah, final thoughts for me. Again, I absolutely loved it. I don't need to sell anybody on it. Again, I'm like you say, it isn't the best if I was to like grade it, but it's very watchable. It's very bingeable, and I still think if you were to show somebody new seasons 1 to 5 in a group, the series doesn't detract. There's not a sheer jump up or jump down in quality. It's so consistent, and I'll give credit to this show for going down the story arc routes more so than the outright action, but it never loses sight of what it is.
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same. This series isn't the best of them so far. But one thing I will say, the final episode, episode 10, might be the best Cobra Kai episode, full stop. And I think once people watch it, I doubt there will be any debate on that. It is a bonkers episode from the very, very kind of opening sequence to the very, very ending sequence. It is just nonstop. And that's all we can say on that. But it is fantastic, and it's good to know that the show hasn't lost any of its momentum throughout the entire series. A lot of shows, sometimes they start to lull kind of heading through their series and everything like that. And it's good to kind of see that they managed to keep all of that going up until this point, which is absolutely fantastic. I would recommend it. If you've seen the previous series of Cobra Kai, then of course you're going to go see this one. But if you haven't seen any of the series of Cobra Kai, then I'd suggest going back and watching through them just to kind of, have a little bit of a taste of the modern 80s, I guess is the best way of putting it. A bit of nostalgia, but done in the right way.
No, 100%. And that is going to do it for our review. So as I said, please do comment your thoughts on Cobra Kai. Any questions you might have, again, we can answer some that answer well. If you want to say, oh, what's the best episode? We're going to both write number 10. But if you've got questions like that we can answer, don't hesitate to ask them, because, again, we love talking Cobra Kai with you. And as we always say, we are going to have a spoiler discussion. We'll have that one live. It'll be probably more than me and you. We haven't figured anything out. We haven't got a date yet. But, we've got people on this channel that are big Cobra Kai fans as well that have jumped on in the past. So there's going to be a few things we can talk about with this series, which is going to be very exciting. It is exciting for you all to watch at the time. So, OJ, please do comment, hit the subscribe button. Cobra Kai is not going away anytime soon. We've got a whole playlist on our channel on our homepage with all the prior season reviews. We've got this brand new thumbnail, this new series of artwork designs for this. We've got a background of the logo embroidered in, because that's how every Cobra Kai episode ends, and the background should be like that. So we have gone all out for this, and we hope you get the chance to enjoy it. And, if you want to find out about what other videos are coming up, go get us on our social medias. Tate, where are those? They can get them in the link in the description, but just in case they just want to listen.
You can look in the link in the description, or you can just go straight to Facebook, Letterboxd. That's just Cinema Savvy. Instagram and Twitter are our most kind of, active social medias. That's at cinema_savvy. And if you want to support the channel, go on to Redbubble, link in the description, pick up any of the merch. It helps out a lot. So go do that.
Definitely, everybody, please. And if you're not just a fan of Cobra Kai, you're a fan of film. Obviously, we've got a lot of TV stuff happening at the moment, but there is going to be a film review today. So we've been running a series on the Steven Spielberg retrospective where we review every single Steven Spielberg directed film. Its name's in the title. And we're going to do a review for War of the Worlds. That is today. That's tonight. You might watch this in the future. It's already been and gone. There might be more Spielberg films. Every single Tuesday night UK time, we drop a new episode. Luckily, this is 12 hours before this embargo, which means we still haven't had a crossover, which is crazy. One day we probably will. So there will be a War of the Worlds review. There's a lot of films coming out at the end of September. It's obviously Venice Film Festival, Toronto Film Festival. But we're going to get London Film Festival. We're both at that. There'll be a lot of reviews for London. We'll have more details on our socials nearer the time. And there's also D23 this weekend. So what that means is Disney's got a lot of announcements to make. And if there's enough announcements for us to go do a video, maybe discussion, maybe trailer breakdowns or something for something big we don't know about, we'll have a video out. So do keep your eyes peeled for D23. Obviously, there's likely a lot of Marvel stuff, potentially Indiana Jones, Star Wars 2. But we'll have details on our social medias for them. So I said maybe into TV too. Maybe Disney will one day buy Cobra Kai. I doubt it. Netflix is doing well. Also, one fun thing. Netflix should really look at getting some proper Cobra Kai merch out in the wilderness, because I know there's a game from a couple of years ago. I know there's the T-shirts, but they could really capitalize on Cobra Kai stuff. And if they've got the budget to do it, maybe we'll get an announcement in the next few weeks. But that is going to do it for today's video. I want to thank everybody for watching at home. Thank you for taking the time out to join us. It's the first time. Maybe we'll see you into this week for Cobra Kai. And as always, thank you for watching. Take care, and we'll see you then.